The thing is, I don't actually watch a lot of films. And that may surprise a lot of people. The reason for wanting to be a filmmaker is not because I like watching films. I haven't watched basically any of the main old films that get the best scores on IMDb, and everyone else has watched it, so you have to watch it. I was actually watching The Dark Knight for the first time the other day. I know, like, released in 2008, but watching it in 2025 for the first time is not good. I was 2 years old when it released. And it's a very good film, by the way. I can see why filmmakers get inspired easily by films like that, and Christopher Nolan is just a great director. I feel like everyone knows that. Well, anyway, my brother walks in and he asks me how the film is, and I say it's really good, and it's in the top 50 films on IMDb. I don't know where it actually is on the list, but probably really high. And then we start going through the films on the list, so through the top 50 films on IMDb, and literally every other film that's on this bloody list, my brother's going, oh, I watched that, oh, it's really nice, or oh, it's really shit, or something like that. Bearing in mind that my brother has no intention, has no interest in going into film or TV, and he watches all these films. Meanwhile, me, who wants to be a film director when I'm older, or soon, hopefully, as soon as possible, haven't watched, I've watched a handful of them, and I've heard of half of them, and the other ones I haven't even heard of. And my brother couldn't believe that I wanted to be a film director when I'm older, and I haven't even watched Scarface yet. And that's one of the films that you have to watch, because there's some sort of rule. I don't really believe that there's any issue with not watching the films that everyone else watches if you want to get into film and TV. Although sometimes I do feel behind when I talk to other people who want to get in film and television, because they're talking to me about films that inspires them and list of actors, cinematographers, directors from some niche indie film that I've never heard of, and they know the origin story of every single bloody person in this film and how they got into that position and how they're planning to copy how they've got into that position and stuff like that. And I have zero clue who they're on about, who they're talking about, and what film they're on about, and how the film goes. I'm sure it's a really good film. I either have to disappoint them in saying that I've never watched classics like Silence of the Lambs or Inglourious Bastards, because I haven't, or I awkwardly nod my head and be like, oh yeah, I agree, blah, 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 and then hope they don't question me about the storyline, because then I'm buggered. Right, the gig's up. Right, I'm a fraud. Yeah, and I've only just found out who Roger Bleeding Deakins is from my A-level class, and he's supposed to be the most well-known director, the richest cinematographer ever. But anyway, back to my point, right? And hopefully some of you filmmakers relate to this, and I'm not the only one. But I believe that the best films, the best art, the best books don't come from looking and copying them what other filmmakers and practitioners have made. I feel like the best films come from what's originally in your skull, and the ideas that come naturally as you as a creative individual. I believe that they're the best ideas that you can come up with instead of copying what other people do. You may not believe that your original idea that's come for your cranium is a good idea, but I can tell you now that it's a better idea and a better thing to make that's more authentically you than if you watched one of the, Gladiator, for example, one of the best films ever. Right, I actually have watched that one. That's a rare one that I actually have watched, but I can't really remember it because it was that long ago. But I believe that if you just copied or took things from that film, it's going to be worse off, and people are going to enjoy it less than if you just made something from your cranium and put it on a paper and actually made it and came to life, filmed it, and because most writers and filmmakers actually watch a lot of films. But the problem is they create things that are too similar to cult classics that everyone's watched. Don't be that filmmaker who has no original ideas, no unique style, and expects everyone to be astounded when they when they watch your film for the first time, because they're not. They have seen it before, and they're not going to be as impressed as they would be if it was a unique film. It's not me digging anyone out, but I feel like you need to trust yourself more. I trust you more than you trust yourself. Have trust in your ideas, right? And actually think that my unique idea is going to be special, is going to resonate with an audience, and is going to make you a successful filmmaker in the long run. An example of this is when I made my first short films, which is Dr. Kane Part 1 and Part 2. And if you haven't watched them, by the way, I highly recommend, and especially Part 2, because that's where the juicy stuff happens. But you need to watch Part 1 to understand Part 2. When I came up with the storylines and the characters and the style of Dr. Kane, my media teacher was non-stop asking me, have you watched this film? Have you watched that film? Have you watched Donnie Darko? Because obviously my media teacher knows and can see similarities between those films that he was recommended, and I can't remember them because they're like in the bloody 50s. And he can see similarities with Dr. Kane. But I had no idea what he was on about, and I've never heard about any of the films that he's watched before. I mean, I didn't hear about Donnie Darko. Now I know about Donnie Darko. Still haven't watched it, despite his recommendation. I think it is okay to coincidentally be similar to another filmmaker, to another piece of art, to another story, as long as you thought of them authentically yourself, rather than watching the film and then taking them and putting it into your stuff. I mean, that's okay too, but I don't think it's going to be as good. Like, just look outside of film, for example, at someone like Ed Sheeran, right? He got taken to court because another artist thought that he copied a chord progression, or the other artist thought he stole the chord progression. But Ed Sheeran did not listen to that song and think, right, I'm nabbing that chord progression, I'm just going to make it a little bit similar, or a little bit different. But I think Ed Sheeran creatively came up with a chord progression because of his unique style, his creative brain, his obviously musician head. He came up with that chord progression, and it coincidentally was similar to that song and 100 other songs that came before his. But that doesn't mean he stole the idea. He didn't look at all these other songs and be like, oh, that's a nice chord progression, let me put that in my song and plagiarise it. No, he did it, and then coincidentally he was similar to these other chord progressions, right? It's the same in film. There's so many films out there that people have made, and there's only so many things people like to watch. You know, so obviously some characters, some storylines, some style is going to be unique. No, it's going to be similar to other films that have come before yours, right? And I think that's completely okay, but I feel like you need to avoid looking at those films and being like, oh, well, let me incorporate that into my stuff, because maybe it will improve it, but I just feel like it will make you enjoy the process a bit less, and it will not be authentically you. But being unique, being authentically you, is the main reason why I want to be a great filmmaker. I want to create amazing stuff that has come from my own thoughts, my own storylines, my own ideas. And although I would like to sit down and watch a film, but I do not want to consume all these great films and then base my films off of these films that they have made. Like, you see this more and more in today's world. Like, I don't mean to be like every other self-help YouTuber, because I'm not a self-help YouTuber. I just think that you need to stop consuming on your phone, on social media, doom scrolling, because I know everyone jokes about it, but it's actually a problem. Like, doom scrolling is actually a problem. Or you sit down watching TV, putting on a film, you're still consuming stuff. And then when you're watching the film, one day you're thinking, oh yeah, I really wish I'm gonna make a film like this. One day I'm gonna study this film and I'll eventually make something that's successful. No, No, that is not the way to go. Start creating today. Write that script and run with it before it turns stale. Don't sit on the idea, because it actually will go stale. Just think about, what if you watched a film and you watched it once a week, twice a week for a year? Don't you think by the flipping 100th time that you've watched this film, it's going to be fucking boring, right? That is the same thing when you're writing that script and then you're just sitting on the idea for so long. Like, move it along and you'll enjoy the process more, because it'll be more fresh to you. Don't sit on it for a year, because although it might be stale to you after the 50th time that you've seen your script, it will be fresh to a new eye, you know? People will enjoy it. This is exactly what I did with Dr. Kane. For part 1, I wrote the scripts for my A-level project, and within a week I got the crew, I messaged all my friends to get involved, the equipment, I got all my tripods, my cameras and stuff like that. And I organised locations and if they're available for which day, because I need to go to my nan's house to use her loft. And I got that all done within a week, and then I moved quickly on and shot it shortly after that. And with part 2, I decided to finish the storyline and make part 2 outside of school in my own time. And admittedly, it took me a long time, probably too long, to actually write the script and finish the script and write a whole new film and finish the highly anticipated story. But once I did, I got the crew ready, that were the same as part 1. I added a few more characters, and then we started filming. Although there was a few more barriers with making this one, because there were problems with filming in the same locations, because they weren't as free as often, and I was moving house, and some of it was in my house, so I obviously couldn't film it in the house again. But we got it to work. You know, we finished it, and I think that is what filmmaking is all about, and why I want to get into it, is because it's all about fixing problems to get your film out and made, and your vision, get your vision across by any means necessary. And that is why I want to become like a great filmmaker. Another reason is that I love seeing people's reactions to my films and the things that I create. I mean, I watched part 2, Dr. Kane part 2, with my girlfriend, and her reaction was incredible. And it was hands down one of the most rewarding things about being a filmmaker, seeing the emotion, the reaction that your project that you created has had on someone. When Dr. Kane part 2 released, I'll put it here, one of my good friends sent me videos on Snapchat of him and his friend group sitting down and watching my new project that I've worked on. And they sat down for 20 minutes just hanging out, watching it, reacting to it. And honestly, that is the best thing that you can receive as a new filmmaker, is seeing people just like fueling a social event, or a person's evening, you know, giving them the entertainment that they want, you know, making their evening just that little bit less dull. I just think that if you want to become a filmmaker, I just think all you need to do is start, right? And one day, just make things that you like, and then one day it will resonate with someone, it will resonate with an audience. Granted, my audience isn't even that big. My film that I'm talking about, and my last film that I've made, only got 1.6k views on YouTube, right? I think that's good, right? But it doesn't make me an expert by any means, or a successful filmmaker by any means. But that's what I'm trying to work towards. And I'm trying to take you other filmmakers on the journey with me, and make you become a good filmmaker, you know, maybe, and work together. Like, the film still got a great reaction from the 1.6k people that watched it. And your audience doesn't need to be huge, right? And my audience isn't huge, but I feel like my audience and the people that watch the film are very valuable, because they want to watch, they actually care, they're interested in what I'm making, you know? And I feel like that's the most important and most valuable thing that you can do. And if you're a filmmaker that thinks that making a film is that people actually enjoy is impossible and very hard to get to and a long way out. You're wrong. You are literally wrong. I hope that you find your reason to become a filmmaker and actually give it a go. Or I hope that you find a reason to keep being a filmmaker and be more authentically you, more original, and start creating more. Look forward to seeing what you create, and I hope that you look forward to seeing what I create. Thank you, and subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. My tea's cold now.